Just before proposing, a man gives his girlfriend a fake cheap ring and tells her he's lost his job, then watches her reaction. The rain tapped gently against the cafe window as Vincent Romero, 34, adjusted the plain silver ring box in his coat pocket. Tall, with smooth olive skin, neatly combed black hair and piercing brown eyes, Vincent wore a charcoal blazer over a faded shirt to match the illusion he was crafting. He sat at the corner table in a quiet part of downtown Claremont, a small city nestled between mountains and mist. Across the cafe, his girlfriend, Aria Lawson, 29, with light brown skin, curly chestnut hair tied in a ponytail, and wearing a lavender blouse with soft blue jeans, waved as she walked in, her eyes lighting up with warmth. Aria was radiant in a way that never needed diamonds, but Vincent wasn't here to give her one, not yet. As she sat, he offered her a nervous smile. He wasn't usually like this. He built his tech company from scratch, earned millions by 30, and had everything except certainty in love. "I have something important to say," he began. Aria tilted her head with curiosity, her dark eyes softening. "Before I go any further, I need to tell you something. I lost my job. Things are tough." She reached for his hand, her voice calm. "We'll get through it together." But Vincent's heart wasn't steady yet. The real test was still in his pocket. Vincent's fingers trembled slightly as he pulled out the tiny velvet box. Not the pristine one he'd originally purchased from the luxury jeweler, but a cheap one he'd picked up from a street vendor the day before. Inside was a dull nickel-plated ring with a glass stone. It barely sparkled under the cafe lights. He placed it gently on the table between them. "I know this isn't what you might have imagined," he said slowly, "but this is all I can offer right now." Aria blinked in surprise. She hesitated before reaching for the box, her expression unreadable. He watched her carefully. Every second that passed felt like a hammer on his chest. She opened the lid, silence. Then a soft smile. "It's beautiful." He nearly flinched. She wasn't supposed to say that. Her gaze rose to meet his. "You chose this. That means more to me than any price tag." Vincent felt a mix of relief and guilt rise in his throat. She didn't question the ring, or the story about his job. Either she was genuinely in love, or incredibly kind. Either way, his plan was just beginning. The lie was already heavier than he anticipated. Though Aria's reaction seemed pure, Vincent couldn't help but replay her words in his head. Was it real acceptance or just politeness? Was she hiding disappointment? As they walked side by side through the drizzle after the cafe, she clung to his arm like always, laughing at his old college stories, oblivious to the conflict storming inside him. She spoke about weekend plans and hinted at new traditions they could start together. Small things, normal things. It should have brought him peace, but instead it fed his unease. Back at his loft, he noticed she didn't look at the ring much. She left it on the coffee table while she curled up on the couch and scrolled through photos of their past vacations. It didn't seem like she was admiring the moment, or the proposal. Was she disappointed? Was she pretending? Vincent's own conscience began to needle at him. He hated that he couldn't just believe her. But too many people in his world had seen his wealth as a ticket, not a partnership. He'd promised himself he'd never be fooled again. Still, watching Aria, he wondered, had he crossed a line too far with this test? 2 days passed, and Vincent continued the charade. No job, no new plans. The ring still sat in its box, untouched on the mantel. Aria never complained, but she also didn't mention the engagement again. She didn't post anything on social media. No announcement, no calls to her sister. It was eerie how quietly she accepted everything. One evening, while Vincent feigned fatigue on the couch, Aria sat beside him, brushing her fingers through his hair. She spoke softly, like she always did when something was bothering her, but she didn't want to show it. "You know," she began, "when I was little, my mom told me that real love shows up when life falls apart, that it's not about the ring or the moment, it's about the person. I believe that." Vincent turned his head slowly, unsure what to say. Her words felt sincere, too sincere. Then she added, almost in a whisper, "But it's okay if you're not ready. We don't have to rush anything." His heart sank. She thought he was pulling away. She thought his strange behavior meant he was hesitating. And he realized in that moment he might be breaking something beautiful, not testing it. Later that night, Vincent stared at the real engagement ring, the one hidden in his study drawer, platinum band. Flawless diamond, elegant and bold. It represented the truth. But truth was a currency he hadn't been willing to spend yet. He walked into the kitchen where Aria was sipping tea in silence. Her long curls were pulled back into a loose bun, and the soft lighting caught the tiredness in her eyes. She was still wearing the lavender blouse she'd worn the night he gave her the fake ring. She looked up, concerned. "Are you okay?" Vincent wanted to confess everything right there. But he hesitated. If he told her now, would it ruin everything? Would she feel betrayed by the test? or would it prove how genuine her love really was? He couldn't sleep that night. He lay awake beside her, feeling the space between them grow heavier with every unspoken truth. Her fingers were lightly curled on the pillow, peaceful in slumber, while his mind was storming. The engagement switch was never meant to hurt, but the closer he got to the answer, the more terrified he was of what it might reveal. The next morning, Arya left for work with a peck on the cheek and a reminder to eat. Vincent watched her go, unease still gripping his chest. He spent the day pacing his apartment, guilt consuming him like a fever. It wasn't just the deception, it was that he couldn't tell if he was still in control of it. By afternoon he noticed something that sent a jolt through his spine. The fake ring, it was gone from the mantel. He searched the apartment, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, nowhere. When Arya returned later he didn't confront her. Instead he casually asked, "Did you take the ring with you?" She smiled faintly. "I gave it to a girl at the shelter where I volunteer. She was crying about losing her late mother's ring. I thought maybe it would give her some comfort." Vincent's heart twisted. He hadn't expected that, not at all. "No offense," she added gently, "but it looked like something that meant more as a symbol than in value. I thought you wouldn't mind." He didn't, he couldn't, but he also realized something deeper. Arya hadn't treasured the ring because of what it cost. She'd seen it for what it was, a promise, and she chose to pass that promise on to someone who needed it more. Vincent sat in stunned silence after Arya's explanation. The fake ring, the heart of his test, was now with a grieving girl at a shelter. A stranger held it, believing in the comfort it represented, while Arya stood in front of him with no engagement ring at all. But she didn't seem bothered. She didn't ask for a replacement, didn't hint at disappointment. Instead, she walked into the kitchen and began making them dinner, humming softly to herself. To her, nothing had changed, but to Vincent, everything had. Later, over pasta and wine, he finally asked, "Why didn't you tell me you gave it away?" Arya shrugged with a serene smile. "I didn't think it was about the ring. I thought it was about us." She reached across the table and held his hand. "If you're going through something, just know I'm not here for the material things. I'm here because I believe in you." Vincent felt like he was crumbling. This woman, kind, selfless, perceptive, was being tested unfairly, and he was failing himself in the process. He nodded silently, but a decision was forming. Soon the truth would have to come out. She deserved more than silence. She deserved the truth and something real. The next day, Vincent found himself driving to the shelter. He parked outside, his hands gripping the steering wheel. It was a modest red brick building tucked between two shuttered shops. Inside, volunteers moved quickly, handing out blankets, pouring coffee, comforting the weary. It was humbling. He asked a staff member about the girl Arya had given the ring to. They pointed him to a quiet corner where a teenage girl sat alone, fiddling with something in her hand. The fake ring. She was no older than 16, with tear-streaked cheeks and a hopeful smile as she turned the ring slowly in her fingers. Vincent approached gently. "That ring. Did someone give it to you recently?" She nodded. "A nice lady said I should have something that reminds me I'm not alone." Vincent swallowed hard. She was right. He left without asking for the ring back. Back in his car, he looked at the velvet box on his passenger seat. The real ring. It gleamed with promise but felt meaningless unless offered truthfully. He finally realized the test had been passed, but he was the one who failed by not trusting her love from the start. Now it was time to make it right. That evening, Vincent cooked dinner, a rare act considering Arya usually teased him about his lack of culinary skill. He prepared her favorite, lemon herb salmon with roasted vegetables. He lit candles, turned on soft jazz, and wore the navy button-down she once called her favorite. When Arya arrived, she raised an eyebrow in amused suspicion. "What's the occasion?" He handed her a glass of wine. "Sit, I need to talk," she obeyed, smiling nervously. But her eyes quickly filled with concern as she noticed the seriousness on his face. Vincent took a deep breath. "I lied to you." The words came out heavier than expected. Arya didn't speak, just waited. "I didn't lose my job, and that ring wasn't real. I bought it from a vendor on purpose, to test you. I needed to know if you loved me without everything I own." He expected tears, anger, disbelief. But Arya remained calm. She looked down for a moment, then met his eyes again. "And what did you learn?" He blinked. "That I didn't need to test you. That I should have trusted you from the start." Arya's voice was steady. "You broke my heart a little, but you're here now, so finish what you started." Vincent dropped to one knee, finally, and pulled the real ring from his coat pocket. "I love you, Arya Lawson," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I thought I needed a test, but the truth is, I needed to see my own fear. You've given me nothing but love and grace. Will you marry me?" Arya looked at the diamond, bigger, clearer, more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. But her eyes never lingered on it. They stayed locked on his, tearful and glowing. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him up into a hug before he could even slide the ring onto her finger. He held her tightly, burying his face in her shoulder. The weight of guilt lifted, not because she forgave him, but because she chose him, after all of it. As they swayed gently in the middle of their kitchen, nothing about the room had changed, but everything about their future had. She pulled back, laughing through tears. "You're cooking next time too, by the way," he grinned. "Deal, but no more tests, only truth, and this time there would be no switch." The following weeks were blissful. No pretense, no masks, just raw, honest partnership. Arya wore the real engagement ring with quiet pride, not because of its size or sparkle, but because she now understood the depth of the man who gave it to her. Friends asked why there wasn't a grand proposal video. Arya smiled and said, "Because the moment was ours, and it was perfectly imperfect." Vincent resumed work but no longer let it consume him. He carved out more time for Arya, helped at the shelter with her, and even learned how to make proper lasagna, burning the first 3 attempts along the way. One Saturday, while walking through Claremont's weekly market, Vincent noticed Arya pause at a vendor's table filled with handmade rings. "Funny how it started here," he mused. She smiled, slipping a plain silver band onto her finger. "I still think this one has more heart." Vincent kissed her temple. "As long as your heart is with me, I don't care if we marry with twine." Arya looked up at him, beaming. "Let's build something no test could ever measure." They walked away hand in hand, not chasing perfection, just choosing each other every single day. As their wedding plans slowly took shape, Vincent found himself reflecting on the road that brought them here. He couldn't stop replaying the test he had devised, how unnecessary it was, how close he came to ruining something real. One evening he invited his best friend Jordan over, a longtime confidant and one of the few people who knew about the test. "You really went through with it?" Jordan asked, stunned. As they sat on Vincent's balcony overlooking the Claremont skyline, Vincent nodded. "And she passed with more grace than I deserved." Jordan laughed, but there was admiration in his eyes. "You're lucky, most people would have walked away." "I know," Vincent replied quietly. "She didn't just stay, she made me better." He glanced inside through the glass doors. Arya was sitting cross-legged on the rug, flipping through fabric swatches, her curls bouncing with every movement. Her soft brown skin glowed in the golden hour light and her expression was peaceful, exactly what love was supposed to feel like. "I tested her," Vincent whispered, more to himself than to Jordan. "But she revealed me." And that was the truth he would carry into marriage. The test may have started with suspicion, but it ended with self-awareness. Despite their happiness, there remained one last thing Vincent needed to do: acknowledge the pain he had caused. Arya had forgiven him, but he felt it hadn't been enough to simply apologize. He needed to own the entire experience. One quiet Sunday, as they sipped coffee on their small balcony, Vincent cleared his throat. "I want to talk about the ring again." Arya gave him a curious glance. "We're past that, aren't we?" "Yes," he nodded, "but I don't think I ever asked how it made you feel." Arya looked down at her cup, considering. "It hurt, not because of the ring or the fake job, but because you thought I needed to be tested. It made me wonder if you ever truly believed in me." He swallowed hard. "I didn't at the time, and I hate that I was that person." Arya placed her hand on his. "But you're not anymore, and I chose to love the man you're becoming, not just the one you were." He leaned in and kissed her knuckles, humbled again by her grace. She continued, "Love isn't about perfect choices, it's about choosing each other, even after the mistakes." That day, Vincent learned that healing was a choice, and Arya had made it. In the days leading up to their engagement party, Vincent had an idea. He visited a local artisan, a quiet older woman who specialized in handcrafted jewelry. He showed her a sketch, a simple silver ring etched with vines circling a small stone, not flashy, not expensive, just meaningful. "This is to replace a lie with truth," he said. The woman smiled kindly. "Then let's make it right." When the ring was ready, Vincent brought it home, nervous once more. Arya was reading on the couch when he walked in. "I have something for you," he said. She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Another ring, not a proposal. Just a promise." He handed her the small box. Inside was the silver band, designed to reflect where they started but created in honesty. Arya stared at it, touched. "It's beautiful." He took her hand. "This one isn't about tests or wealth. It's about us and what we've built since then." Arya slid it onto her other hand, beside the diamond ring. "Then I'll wear it always." And just like that, the false start had been rewritten, this time with intention, sincerity, and a ring born of redemption. Their engagement party was held in a sunlit garden just outside Claremont, surrounded by friends, laughter, and blooming wildflowers. But Vincent noticed something different. This wasn't the kind of celebration he'd once imagined, full of glitz and high society. It was quieter, warmer, more grounded. Arya wore a flowing cream dress with her hair in a soft braid. She greeted guests with genuine joy, hugging old co-workers, family, and even 2 volunteers from the shelter. Vincent couldn't stop watching her, amazed at how deeply she connected with people. When it came time for a toast, Vincent stood up with a trembling glass in his hand. "I once thought love had to be tested to prove it was real," he began. "But what I've learned is that love doesn't need to pass trials, it needs to be nurtured with trust." He glanced at Arya, who smiled with tears in her eyes. "This woman taught me that, and because of her I'm a better man. So tonight we're not just celebrating a future wedding, we're celebrating honesty, growth, and the decision to love without conditions." The crowd clapped, and Arya walked over, embracing him tightly. It wasn't flashy, but it was everything. 1 week later, Arya brought Vincent back to the shelter, not as a visitor this time, but as a volunteer. She introduced him to the girl who still wore the fake engagement ring proudly on a chain around her neck. Her name was Lila. "This is Vincent," Arya said gently. "The one who gave me that ring. He wanted you to know what it means." Lila looked up, her voice shy. "It's helped me feel brave." Vincent knelt beside her, his voice quiet. "You helped me too." He handed Lila a small envelope containing a scholarship fund in her name. Arya placed her hand on his back as he explained, "This is for whatever future you want to build. Because every symbol of hope deserves to lead to something real." Tears welled up in Lila's eyes as she hugged them both. That day the shelter wasn't just a place of giving, it became a place where Vincent's lie had turned into something true, a promise extended beyond just Arya. And for the first time since the test began, Vincent no longer felt ashamed of how the story started. He was proud of how it was ending. With the wedding date now set for spring, Vincent and Arya found themselves deep in the chaos of planning. But unlike many couples overwhelmed by flower choices and seating charts, they had something different in mind. "We don't need luxury," Arya said, circling venues in a modest magazine. "Let's focus on meaning," Vincent smiled. "Then let's make it about community." They decided to hold the wedding in a public botanical garden, the very place they had their first date. Arya contacted the shelter to invite Lila and a few other families. Vincent reached out to his old college mentor who once helped him through a rough patch when he was broke and anonymous. Their guest list became a reflection of their journey, not their status. Instead of fancy favors, they opted to donate a portion of their wedding fund to the shelter. Arya even asked a few local kids to help design hand-painted signs for the reception. "Every part of this," Vincent said one evening, "feels like we're rebuilding from the foundation up." Arya leaned against him. "That's because we are." The planning wasn't about impressing anyone anymore. It was about honoring the love that survived a test and grew stronger because of it. The night before the wedding, Vincent found himself wandering their apartment alone while Arya stayed with her sister. He walked through each room like it held echoes of their story. The kitchen where he'd nearly confessed, the couch where she sat quietly wearing the fake ring, the balcony where she told him forgiveness wasn't just acceptance but an act of love, and the mantle, now empty, once holding the ring that began it all. He retrieved the silver promise ring and held it between his fingers, remembering how she wore it proudly next to the diamond. It wasn't just a symbol of their healing, it was proof that love can rise even from doubt. Then he opened a drawer and stared at the original velvet box that had been part of his lie. He tossed it into a donation bag, smiling. He didn't need it anymore. The truth had taken its place. Later that night he journaled, something Arya had encouraged. One line stood out, "You don't measure love with tests, you reveal it with trust." And with that thought, Vincent turned off the lights and went to bed, for the last time as a single man. The sun rose with golden warmth as guests arrived at the botanical garden. Arya, glowing in a simple white gown, her curls crowned with tiny wildflowers, walked barefoot through the grass. Her skin radiant against the sunlight, she laughed easily, greeting guests not as a bride trying to impress but as a woman who had found her center. Vincent, in a light gray linen suit and no tie, stood beneath a wooden arch wrapped in ivy and handmade garlands. When he saw her, his breath caught. Their ceremony wasn't full of elaborate rituals. Instead, it included a reading from Lila, the girl who wore the fake ring. "This ring was once fake," she said, voice shaking but strong. "But it gave me real hope. And that's what love does, it makes even the broken things beautiful." Arya teared up. Vincent did too. When they exchanged vows, Vincent said, "I tested you once, and you gave me grace. I vow to spend the rest of my life earning it." Arya smiled. "And I vow never to let fear decide how we love." When they kissed, there was no orchestra, just birdsong, and the sound of people who understood that this wasn't just a marriage, it was a redemption. Months after the wedding, their lives settled into something beautifully ordinary. Vincent began mentoring young entrepreneurs, not for profit but to offer guidance he never had. Aria continued her work at the shelter, eventually launching a community initiative for at-risk teens. They traveled, but always came back home to Claremont, where every corner of their life whispered memories of growth and grace. One night, while washing dishes side by side, Vincent said quietly, "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you'd walked away." Aria dried her hands, turned to him, and cupped his cheek. "Then I would have missed the man you became, and so would the world." He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me, even when I didn't deserve it." They stood there, arms wrapped around each other, with no need for diamonds or tests, only truth, trust, and the quiet rhythm of two hearts beating in harmony. And that, they both agreed, was the only kind of love worth living for. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you reflect on love, trust, and redemption, don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable tales of heart and humanity. Your next favorite story is just a click away.